Hey everybody, it's Emily from ARG Schooling, and I'm going to bring you a book review today. I'm going to be reviewing Jane Steele by Lyndsay Faye. So this month, our book for the Read Like a Mom book club is Jane Steele by Lyndsay Faye. And I just finished this yesterday, and I loved it. This is probably going to make my maybe even top 5 list of best books I've read this year. About maybe like 6 months-ish ago, or not even that long ago. Somewhere in like the May-June time period, I believe, I saw a blurb in my local newspaper in the literary section about a new release that would be coming out in which they took the story of Jane Eyre and turned it on its head a little bit. And what if Jane Eyre had been a serial killer? Well, that just, I needed to know more. So as soon as it came out, I bought it, and then it sat on my shelf for ages. But I just read it, and this book was so good. So the premise is that Jane Steele lives in Victorian England, and she loves the book Jane Eyre. It is her favorite book, and she kind of uses it as a guide to her life, if you will. And there's a lot of parallels between Jane Steele's life and Jane Eyre's life. So for example, they both had aunts that mistreated them. They both went to terrible boarding schools where they were treated horribly. They both become governesses, and there's a but there is a huge difference in that Jane Steele has had to murder people. But she's not a bad person. She's not a villain. All of the murders she commits, she's committed them because those people deserved it and needed to die. So, they're all bad guys. All the people she kills have treated her terribly, have treated other people terribly. They're just villains. So her murders are sometimes out of self-defense. They are sometimes committed to prevent something terrible from happening to somebody else. So they're justified even though they're murders. So it's kind of like a gray character. There are so many little things, little like Easter eggs. If you're a fan of Jane Eyre, you'll notice like her love interest, his name is Charles Thornfield. Thornfield is the house that Mr. Rochester owned. So there's lots of little things like that. There's also a very interesting look at the Sikh culture from India, as Charles Thornfield comes from that culture, even though he's British, but he was raised there, and all of his friends are Sikh Indians, and so there's a lot of that in the story, which I found fascinating. I love learning about other cultures, so I thought that was a really fun little add-on, and I really want to go and do some research and learn more because it's not really something I knew a lot about, so I love that aspect too. Overall, I found this book fabulous. I loved the character of Jane. She was such an interesting, gray, like really well thought through character. She never felt fake to me. She never felt like, oh, this is supposed to be Jane Eyre if Jane Eyre did this. No, she always felt like a real person who was making real decisions, in which she used Jane Eyre as sort of her inspiration. Like, what would Jane do? Of course, Jane wouldn't kill people, but she felt that she had to. After an incident in her childhood, she believed she was a bad person, and so she believed that this is what bad people do. So all of the things she does stem from that one incident, which is really sad. I also really liked that this book felt like it was written in this time period. Like, it didn't feel like they weren't using modern slang. They weren't, talking like people talk now. This felt like it could have been written by one of the Bronte sisters. I loved that it just felt old, even though it also at the same time felt very modern. There were so many things that we deal with in our culture today, feminism and LGBTQ aspects and other cultures, and looking at them as if they were real people, because honestly back then, if this had actually been written in that time period, the sick characters probably would have been looked upon as barbaric. And in this book, they were looked on as even ground with everyone else, which I loved. So as it felt written in that time period, but it also felt very modern. So that was really interesting, and I really liked how Lyndsay Faye did that. It was just very well put together. So this book earned a 5-star rating for me, which I only reserve the 5 stars for my very favorite books. So like Harry Potter gets 5 stars, Lord of the Rings get 5 stars, Song of Ice and Fire gets 5 stars. So it's hard for me to give a book 5 stars. But this earned 5 stars, so I've got to go read me some more Lyndsay Faye, because I loved this book. And I've never read anything else by her, so I'm excited to get something from her collection and see what else she's got out there. So I hope you enjoyed this book review. I hope you go pick up Jane Steele. It's an amazing book, and I know you're going to love it. Especially if you love Jane Eyre, you have to read Jane Steele. And if you haven't yet, but want to jump into the Read Like a Mom book club, there are still 2 more weeks in this month. There's plenty of time to jump in. Get a copy of Jane Steele from your local library, or pick it up on Amazon, or Book Outlet has copies for really, really cheap. So look there if you haven't found it anywhere else yet. And jump on in. I will link down below the book club so you can come in and chat with us about Jane Steele and what your thoughts are about the book, and I can't wait to hear from you. If you've read this book and you want to chat with me about it, please do so in the comments. I'd love to discuss. And thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in my next one. Happy reading. Bye!